Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. This magical hour at noon on Tuesday is known as Thinking Tuesday. And I just love to share with you the messages on Thinking Tuesday. We give permission during this time, not just at this time, but we carve out some time today, but hopefully we're doing it on an ongoing basis. But we give ourselves permission to take a break and do a mini inventory of how we're thinking and how our thinking is driving our emotions and our actions. That's very, very important. Are we planting good seed to grow positive thoughts? Or are we planting seeds that grow weeds or negative thinking that cloud and confuse our thinking, leading us to actions that take away from being our best selves or from reaching our goals and our dreams? We have to check to make sure that our thinking is leading us in the right direction. Our slogan for Thinking Tuesday is a very powerful one, and I hope that you will consider seriously allowing it to be your guiding light each day. We say and we believe that your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds, and you can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. And that or means that it is your choice which one you grow, flowers or weeds. When we think of self-care, which is what I'm thinking about today and for this message, when we think about self-care, what comes to mind for many is how well we take care of our appearance, how we present ourselves publicly, how we want others to see us, how we care for ourselves outwardly. But fortunately, and I'm so happy to know this, fortunately, we are learning that self-care is more than that. Self-care is much more than that, how we appear outwardly. What we do inwardly is going to definitely show outwardly. But fortunately, we're learning that self-care is more than that. It includes our diet, it includes being physically fit, it includes taking time to relax, meditating, praying, maybe going to the spa as I did yesterday for that deep massage, which feels so good, getting a good facial if that's what you want. But even despite of that, there is still much more. There's reading good books, having good conversations, not letting some of those negative influences enter your mind, watching what conversations you engage in. At the core of self-care is our mental health, how we think and what we think. Our mental health is so very important. And we have been realizing that more and more, especially during this pandemic. We've realized how much importance we have to give to our mental health. So basic self-care begins with how we think and what we think, because our thinking is always the antecedent to our actions. And because so much of what drives us is below the surface, as much as possible, we must be willing to do that or take that inner journey that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago before, so that we can become familiar with our inner landscape and be willing to face aspects of ourselves, because we all have them, that we would rather not see or acknowledge. But we know the consequences of not acknowledging those aspects of ourselves that we don't particularly care for, or that we want to ignore them. They don't go away, they show up in other ways. So that's the consequence of not taking that inner journey, or taking that inner journey and not liking some of what we see and not addressing it. So self-care begins with becoming aware of who we are, what we think. It begins with how those thoughts affect what we say we would like to achieve, or who we would like to be, who we aspire to be. So what we think is always at the root of what we're experiencing, what we're projecting. For example, let's spend some time. I want to spend some time sharing with you some thoughts and the ensuing behaviors when we experience failure, let's say, when things don't go as we hope they would. We have thoughts perhaps like, I'm afraid that I'll make a mistake, so I won't do it correctly. So we allow that thought, that weed, the fear of failure, to hold us hostage. It holds us back from moving forward. Another example might be, oh, I'm just tired today. No one likes to feel defeated, and when we have a failure, if we see it as a failure, it tends to wear us out. We want to take a break. We want to hide. We want to crawl in the nearest hole, perhaps. But we can acknowledge the feeling. We should acknowledge the feeling, not hide from it, not rationalize it, but we don't have to live in the feeling. We acknowledge it so that we can move on. Another thought that will affect us would be, others can do this better than I can. I'm not cut out for this. Like I mentioned, the young person I was speaking with a couple of weeks ago say, I know my limits. My parents are setting me up for failure. These thoughts make you feel inferior to others, which you're not. Nobody's inferior to another. We just have different abilities. They show up differently, and what might be our strength might be someone else's weakness, and vice versa. But we don't need to see ourselves as inferior to anyone else. So yes, others might do it better than you, but it doesn't mean that you can't try. Another thought might be, after a failure or something that we did not achieve, we might say, oh, this isn't the right time. I'll hold off for a while. And it might sound like sage advice, but these thoughts can really lead us to hesitate to pursue what we would like to achieve. They can be demotivating. So we can rationalize what we say, but it doesn't mean that it's not affecting us in some other way, in a negative way. So we have to be aware of our thoughts and how they are guiding our actions. Another thought that we might have is, oh, that wasn't important anyway. These thoughts would allow you to lose perspective about what you set out to do in the first place, what you would like to pursue. This is what we call the sour grapes principle, right? It's good until you realize that you can't achieve it or you didn't achieve it, and then you rationalize the lack of its importance. So these thoughts really allow you to lose perspective. You're losing ground, you're losing momentum, you're not moving forward because you are rationalizing the importance of what you initially set out to pursue. And then another thought might be, oh, I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I'll wait. This one really just cracks me up, I'll wait until I can find a better way to start. Well, how are you going to find a better way to start if you don't start? You begin to question yourself. You begin to question yourself and put off something because you want to be sure. Except that what's really happening is that you're losing the opportunity to find a new and perhaps a better way, and you become paralyzed. So it might sound good, but in fact, it's really paralyzing you and preventing you from moving forward. Just as I'm giving these examples, I'd like you to think about if you have had any of these, if you harbor any of these type of thoughts, and how have they affected you. Another example might be, oh, I thought this would be much easier than it is. And it might be. But these types of thinking, these types of thoughts, this thinking, allow you to focus mainly on the difficulties. And no one says it would not be difficult or there would not be challenges. But when you focus on the difficulties rather than finding other ways and learning from what's unfolding before you, then you lose opportunities to learn a new way of doing things and moving forward, because that's your goal, moving forward. So the difficulties might slow you down a bit, but they should not deter you from what you're seeking. And then sometimes we have that thought, oh, I shouldn't have had to be the one to do this. We get indignant, someone else should have done this. So we lapse into this self-pity. Why me? Rather than embracing the fact that this might be an opportunity to learn something new. So what if you have to do it? You're getting an opportunity to see something differently, to learn something, to think differently, to create something new. So self-pity doesn't do anything to help you. Those kinds of thoughts are demoralizing, debilitating. They're self-limiting. And then we also might have the thought, if I fail, others will think I'm a loser. And we get so caught up, sometimes too caught up with what others think, or what we think others will think, because most of the times others aren't thinking anything like we think they're thinking. These thoughts also paralyze us from moving forward, because they are concerned, or we are concerned with how we might be viewed. Rather, it would be better to see this as an opportunity, again, to create something new by doing it differently, or complimenting yourself for your willingness, actually, to try when others won't. So instead of thinking about how you'd be viewed, others might view you as someone more valiant, someone more courageous, because you're attempting to do something that no one else would do. And then what do you learn from it, ultimately, is the question. And then the last example I'll give you is, if I fail at this, it means I'm a failure. Well, I've said countless times that you are only a failure if you believe and if you accept that you are a failure. Use failure as a way of learning how not to do something, or maybe a new way to do something, because you might fail at something that you started out moving towards or trying to achieve, but you might learn something else in the process of how to do something else or something better. These kinds of thoughts of failure only affect our self-image, and they're affected negatively, because only you determine how you will show up. So because you didn't achieve it the first time doesn't mean that you have to stop. What did you learn from this time? So I'm going to leave you, after these examples of thoughts that go through our minds many times, I'm going to leave you with an assignment for some self-exploration. Yes. How is your thinking? How is your thinking? How is your thinking driving your self-thought, or your self-talk, I should say? How is your thinking driving your self-talk? Do you identify with any of those examples that I just gave? And how does this type of thinking, how does it affect your self-care? Because how you think is the way you're going to show up, and the way you're going to deal with who you are and the circumstances around you. So all of that, this self-care begins with your thinking. How many of these thought patterns have you, or are you, engaging in? And if so, what problems do they cause in your life? And then ask yourself, what would change if you could find a way to change these thought patterns? What great things could you achieve? Or what things could change significantly for the better in your life if you found a different way to think, if you found a way to change these thought patterns, if that's what you're having? Even if you harbor one of those, you want to really take a close look and see how can you switch into a more positive mindset. If you can allow yourself to think in this manner as you engage in self-exploration, then you are on the right track to self-care, because this is where it starts. As a coach, these are some of the issues that I help my clients explore and improve. Don't be afraid to reach out to speak to someone you can trust, who you can share confidentially what you're thinking and how it's affecting you negatively. Change your way of thinking and change your life, change your action. So please share this with someone who could benefit from it, as I always say. You can always see this message and other messages from Thinking Tuesday on my YouTube channel, Thinking Tuesday, Cheryl Burton. I also invite you to visit my website, where there are many, many programs to help you in your personal growth journey. And if you don't see something there that you would like, that you feel you need, you can contact me through the website anyway for a complimentary consultation so that we can discuss that and design a program for you to address your unique needs. You may also book me to speak through my website. But visit my website, just browse, see what's there that you might be interested in, and also share it with someone who you feel could benefit from this, because many times we struggle alone. There's no need to struggle alone. There's always someone willing to help, willing to listen. And many times, just by speaking with someone, you begin to get clarity. And they might not say anything specifically to you, but just hearing yourself speak out loud, speak your thoughts out loud, will help you to begin the journey to move forward and to achieve those dreams and goals that you have. So I love having you here on Tuesday. I love adding value to you. I look forward again to meeting with you next Tuesday at noon for another message where we expand our thinking and elevate our minds. Take care. Have a wonderful week. See you next Tuesday at noon for Thinking Tuesday. Bye for now.